Rudy Gobert could have 10.5 rebounds.
He's a shell of himself.
You're a shell of yourself.
They're going to win the World Series this year. First time since 1991.
Jabron, you ignorant schmuck.
And welcome back, everybody, to WTL. You know what that stands for. Where's the line? Nebraska's first and only sports betting show. I'm your host, Andy Klassen, joined by
Jabron.
The Parlay Pounder.
You got it. We're back.
Yes, and we got to get back into what I always call your wheelhouse.
Yeah, let's do it.
That is the UFC. And this is a 303.
Big card, baby.
Wasn't it a little bit bigger, though?
Yes, it was. It was I was looking forward to this so much. Chandler versus McGregor, UFC 303 at the end of June. Been telling everybody for, 3 months, 4 months, that this is going to be the best weekend of summer. But, I mean, with all that happened, McGregor broke his toe, had to step down and all that kind of stuff. But they did a really good job of filling this card up. They really did. It's a great card, top to bottom. And anything with Alex Pereira is, it's a good card.
Yeah, Pereira's there. So, we're heading back to glitzy Las Vegas.
Yeah, Vegas.
Kind of feels at home in Las Vegas, doesn't it?
It's where it all was born. It's where it should be. Fight nights and all that kind of stuff is fun moving around. But the biggest fights you feel in Las Vegas.
And this is at T-Mobile Arena.
Yep.
This isn't at the Apex or anything like that. We're getting back to T-Mobile Arena, and to speak to the strength of this card up and down, we're going to start in some prelims with two ranked fighters.
Correct.
We're talking the women's strawweight, Michelle Waterson-Gomez.
The karate hottie, baby.
Excellent nickname.
Yeah, it's the best.
Versus the Canuck, the Canadian, Gillian Robertson, the 15th ranked fighter in this weight class, and she's been talking a lot with her big old red Canadian hair and everything.
Yeah.
I think it's a little dyed, but...
I don't think it's natural, no. I don't believe that's a natural red. But, that's blood red is what it is.
She is your favorite, though, at a minus 200, minus 190, whatever you're looking.
Yeah, no doubt. The karate hottie Gomez is 1-7 in her last 8 fights, so it's going to be hard for me to make a case for her, Andy.
Yeah.
And she's just been terrible at her striking defense. And although she pushes forward a lot, she's a very aggressive fighter. She pushes forward into punches, which has really been her demise in the sport. So she doesn't have striking that will scare Robertson, and Robertson is coming off a nice ground and pound win.
Yep.
Even though Robertson isn't the best striker, I think it's going to be enough to piece up Gomez, and I expect Robertson to get this to the ground at some point and her to win with that submission / ground and pound, and it's going to be good enough to take the win. So I believe Robertson is the favorite for a reason in this fight, and I believe that she's going to take down the karate hottie, as much as that pains me to say, because I love Michelle Waterson-Gomez. I really do.
Yeah.
She great women's fighter, been around for a long, long time, but it just seems like they're kind of laying her out to the dogs here.
Yeah, Gomez is 18-12 overall in her UFC career, and Robertson feels like an up-and-comer now. And just looking at some next-level stats here, Robertson's predicted to win by submission. 70% chance that she's going to do that.
Yeah.
That's just kind of eye-popping there, that she has a 70% chance or predicted 69% chance to win by submission. That's just wild. Meanwhile, both of them are at 17 and 15% to win by that KO or knockout. Really speaks to, we are talking strawweights here. We are talking women's. So I like where you're going with the Canadian Robertson getting this one to the ground, winning by submission.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of the best bets of the night, because I believe Gillian Robertson is going to win this fight. So the minus 185, minus 175, wherever you find it, minus 200. It's a good parlay piece for sure. Even if you want to straight bet it, I believe you will get a good return on it. So Robertson in this one. Sorry to the karate hottie.
All right, let's move on up to the main card here.
Yeah.
Get into the men's welterweight.
Yes.
We have Michael Page, the number 14 contender in the world from the UK.
Yep.
One of those black guys that speaks with that accent. Just kind of throws you off. It's like
really
you're
does.
watching the movie Snatch
Venom.
or something like that. Yeah, Venom. Versus the number 7 contender from Ireland, talking about accents, Ian Garry. He is currently your number 7 contender in this welterweight class. How are you sizing this matchup up?
Yeah, for sure. Ian Garry, the closest thing we have to Conor McGregor on this card, obviously. No, I'm excited to watch this fight as both guys kind of fight with similar styles as they use their length to keep distance from people, and then they throw some unorthodox kicks when, throw opponents off. Both of them are very good at this. Paige, if you remember recently, shocked Kevin Holland in the UFC debut with a decision win where he was just one step ahead of Holland the entire time on the feet, and I don't put it ahead of Paige to confuse Garry at some point. A lot of people are going to bowl right in here and say Ian Garry should win this fight easily.
He's 14-0 and all the fun stuff. But Michael Page is 22-2 with that Holloway win. There's a lot of things to like about Page. I just don't. He's a plus 116, plus 115. I'm looking at a book here. There's no value there.
That's what I'm saying, Andy. The value just isn't there for Michael Page. People are very scared to bet against him. That's why it's sitting like that. I know that Garry probably isn't going to end his career undefeated, but I just don't believe that this is the fight that's going to take him off that trajectory. So I think the sporadic movement from Page in the last one, Gary's going to be able to figure that out.
Right.
He's going to look at that Holland tape and say, what do I need to do? I believe he's going to. I believe Page is going to keep Garry on his back foot for a while on this.
Sure.
But Gary's going to get one of these haul offs and he's going to win this. I believe it might go to decision, but don't be surprised when Garry knocks this guy out because I do believe Ian Garry is the superior fighter here, and just by age, you have to jump on this. I know I was saying the same thing against Kevin Holland versus Michael Page, but there's tape out on him now in the UFC. I believe that he's going to come in with a little bit of false, pride that he's been in the UFC a long time. He's only been in the UFC one fight. Ian Garry is that guy, and he's going to knock this guy out.
Speaking of those, the striking abilities of Garry, he lands 6.5 significant strikes per minute, where Page only lands 3, so he doubles him up on that. Both these guys came in at 170, 170.5. They're both 6'3", so all those measurables are kind of the same. It's when you get to that next level, you're like, okay, Garry is a different breed here.
He is.
And age does play a factor. Let's not pretend that it doesn't.
Like I said, Michael Page looked awesome against Kevin Holland. I don't think Kevin Holland did a lot of research before he went into that fight. Obviously he didn't. He's a young guy. He fights every other weekend, it seems like, Kevin Holland, so he's just jumping in there doing what he can. But Ian Garry, I believe, at plus 350 to knock this guy out is one of the best bets of the weekend. Plus 350, Ian Garry to knock Michael Page out. I believe Michael Page is going to get a little caught up in his dancing around, sticking his tongue out, taunting him a little bit. He's going to get his this weekend. Ian Garry's going to knock this guy out.
I like that little nugget you found there.
Yes, sir.
Plus money. I love that plus money.
Yeah.
Should we move on up to a top 10 matchup on the main card here?
Let's go.
Yeah. Bueno Silva from Brazil, number 3 contender in the women's bantamweight. She's going to be taking on Macy Chiasson, the number 7 contender from the U.S., but Chiasson is a plus 170 underdog. I know that's not huge, but I'm still a little bit surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, both women have a couple holes in their game, Andy, but I think Silva is better in this matchup. Silva should be better in the clinch and on the ground, but she gets a little bit complacent, and she can be outworked like we saw against Pennington in her last fight. So Chiasson wins just aren't as impressive as she's beaten, a couple lesser fighters or lesser known name fighters. Her striking is okay, but not scary, and her grappling is okay. But in this matchup, I just can't figure out. I just think Silva's the better all-around fighter, so that I like the minus 165 or wherever you find it at. I believe this probably does go the distance, so Silva by decision I believe is a good nugget here at plus 275 for Silva to win by decision. I believe is the most likely outcome of this fight.
I mean, Chiasson is 5 inches taller and has her on arm length, has her on leg reach, all those measurables that I usually take a lot into heavy consideration. She has her big time. Now, they both weigh 135. Are you just saying in this type of a matchup, you're not putting too much weight in that reach?
Yeah, no, I just think that Silva's going to get this to the clinch a lot, and if it gets to the ground, I think she's better in that matchup as well. So I believe it's going to. I think this might be a little bit of a clunker of a fight. So if it gets to the ground, if it gets to the clinch, I believe Silva is better in this matchup. If Chiasson can figure out a way to stay on her feet, or go for a submission at some point, she can do it. I'm just saying I just like Silva a lot better in the clinch and on the ground. So I believe that is the most likely outcome, that this gets to a decision or a Silva submission.
And UFC.com agrees with you. Has Silva at a 70% chance of winning by submission.
Yeah,
once again,
that's at plus 300, so that's a good nugget there as well. But I do believe that this probably does go the distance. A little bit of a boring fight that leads up into these last three superstar fights that we're going to talk about in the next segment.
I love it. Well, let's take a quick minute to recognize one of our fabulous partners, and that is the Stock and Rod Company, an outdoor lifestyle brand for those seeking adventure. Whether it's hunting, fishing, hiking, they got you covered. Visit stockandrod.com to get your wild game on. Don't go anywhere. This is WTL. And welcome back, everybody, to WTL. Where's the line? Nebraska's first and only sports betting show. I'm your host, Andy Klassen, joined by
Jabron.
Oh, the Parlay Pounder.
You got it. We're back.
Yes, and we have to round out UFC 303, and we're getting right to that main card.
Yes, sir.
We talked some prelims, the Karate Hottie.
Hottie.
Wonderful nickname.
Yep.
And she was a wonderful fighter in her time.
In her time.
Yeah, it looks like she's going the other way.
Yep.
But now we are, this is kind of backlogged,
These
isn't
are the
it?
top three fights of the night, and they are awesome, filled with superstars in every single one of them.
Let's start with the Nebraska boy.
Let's go!
Anthony Smith Lionheart, your light heavyweight bout, taking on Roman Dolidze. And, our boy, he's an underdog once again, but he was an underdog last time.
Every time.
You told the people,
Yeah.
don't sleep on Lionheart. I like him. Anthony Smith delivered for you.
Yep.
And what do you think about this week? He's a much heavier than Roman. He's also taller. Like I was talking about the reach and all that type of stuff last segment.
Yeah.
Here we go with an underdog that outweighs by a significant amount here, and also has a little bit of a reach.
Yeah, for sure, Andy. And you can see that the odds makers have put a little respect on Anthony Smith. I think he was something like plus 300 the last time we talked to him. He's made it all the way back to plus 120 here in this fight. It's amazing to think that this fight started out as Roundtree versus Jamal Hill, and then here we are, Andy. And Anthony Smith jumped into it against Uberg, and then I actually like that matchup for Smith a lot better, as Uberg doesn't have a ground game to speak of, and Smith, would exploit that. Yeah. But however, Roman will be wise to Smith's tricks and takedowns as well. And in the clinch and on the feet, I think it's kind of split down the middle here, Andy. I believe this is a very good matchup. I don't know how exciting this fight's going to be, because I think it's going to be a little back and forth chess match. Yep. I expect it to go to the distance, but I believe that Anthony Smith can pull this one out as well, with just his body of work and catching Roman when he slips up. So I believe that Anthony Smith, barring getting knocked out, I believe he can take this down in a decision, Andy. And right now, that is sitting right there at a plus 350 for Anthony Smith to win by decision.
There we go.
I really like that bet.
Yeah, that's kind of long odds, especially you have two guys that do like to dance around and measure each other up. Yeah. In Roman style. He is 12-3, and I usually, when I see somebody with
big time.
with a lifetime record like I see Smith here, 38-19, that really kind of scares me off. Kind of reminds me of Cowboy at the end there.
Doubt. Cerrone.
But
Cub Swanson's on this card. He's fighting at 40, so one of those guys.
But Smith feels different to me, where there is a resurgence here. The last 5 fights haven't looked terrible.
Yeah.
He's coming off a win.
And
he is not the only one. He actually has more time to, he was slated for this bout earlier than Roman was. So he started training.
And his last fight was in the first round.
Yep.
You know, I just do believe that he does have a little bit of a resurgence. He's going to make one more run, try and get a, you know, in the talk of a big match, a big money match, or, you know, even a title shot.
Yep.
So I believe that they put this guy against him to test Anthony Smith. If he can beat this guy, I believe they're going to throw him one of the big guys, one of the top 5, one of the top 6 guys
He's right there.
in this division.
He's right there.
So I believe if he can do work against Roman here, which I believe he will, I believe he gets that big shot.
Do you think he's going to try a little too hard, a little too early? Because he does absorb a lot of significant strikes, and Dolidze has a better defense by the stats, by the numbers. He does, and Anthony Smith, he's got that all-around game. But you watch him like, oh man, you took another one. You took another one.
It's like, kind of like Rocky Balboa out there.
Yeah.
You can only take so many punches to the face. But no, I believe he is going to, you know, draw Roman in a little bit in this fight. But I do believe Anthony Smith has a trick up his sleeve that he won't be ready for, and I believe Anthony Smith can get to the victory line here. I believe Anthony Smith wins this fight.
Nice. I'm gonna sign off on that. If
Let's
nothing,
go.
no other reason, just because I'm a little biased.
Yeah, I'm a little biased too. I'm a little biased against Lionheart, but I like what I've seen out of him in his past fights, and I believe he is just more experienced than this guy, and I believe that he can take it down. And it wouldn't be this close with the odds makers if they didn't believe that too. So that's what I'm thinking, Andy. They have to have Roman as the favorite here, just by the record, just by the age, all that stuff. Anthony Smith shouldn't even be close to this if you're looking at this on paper, but somehow he is.
He's at a plus.
Go Lionheart. He wins this fight. He gets a big shot in his next one.
He's at a plus 115. Dolidze is about a plus 130, depending on where you're looking.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on up to the featherweight bout here. Top 3 versus top 14 contender. And when you first look at this, it's a head scratcher.
Yeah, it is.
Brian Ortega, you know, he brings so much glitz,
T-City,
glam,
baby,
all that
T-City.
T-City. And he's the number 3 ranked contender in the world.
Yeah.
Diego Lopes, nice record. He's your 14th overall contender, but he's your favorite at a minus 140, minus 150. Ortega's your underdog at a plus 120, but he's the number 3 ranked contender. What's going on here?
Well, the thing about it is T-City Ortega is a grappling and submission machine, Andy, but Lopes, what everybody's saying is he can hang with Ortega on the ground, and he can win in scrambles and get back to his feet, and you know where he'll have a significant striking edge is what everybody is talking about right here. So, I don't know. I was also kind of struck by Ortega's comment about not having a chance at a title shot because of who's in front of him, talking about Lopes. So I don't really know if Ortega's mind is in this. Plus, I'm kind of on board with the Diego Lopes train.
Both these guys are coming off wins. Their last bout, they both pulled off victories here.
Yeah, and ever since Diego beat Ovlov fight where, you know, he looked impressive in submission, striking, and cardio. I really believe that if T-City's looking past this guy at all, he's going to lose. So I'm kind of on the book side on this one. So it sounded like a bit of defeat in Ortega's, outlook on this fight. So I really like Diego Lopes in this, minus 150, minus 125, wherever you can find it.
Yeah.
I do believe that T-City Ortega is looking past him a little bit.
You know, and when you looked at him during weigh-in, Lopes looked sculpted. I mean, he looked like a statue. Ortega, you know, a little bit rounder. I mean, he didn't look like the Gypsy King or Tyson Fury or anything like that. But it just looked like Lopes. Maybe is a little bit more.
I think he's
ready.
hungry. I think he's hungry. I think Lopes, and this is a huge one to take down the number 3 guy in the division.
Yeah.
Put everybody on notice that I'm rising in stock. And Brian Ortega, he's always going to be. He's always going to be a name. He's always going to be a draw.
Sure.
So I just don't believe that he is into this fight. But, I could be eating my words, and, Brian Ortega submits this guy in 15 seconds. So
it's kind of wild that Ortega's the guy that's kind of chirping about not getting a shot and this and that. And Lopes is 24-6. Like, he's been around a lot longer than Ortega. So if anybody should be, playing their violin saying I should get a shot, it might be Lopes in this case.
No doubt. It's just that Brian Ortega deserves, he feels that he deserves these championship shots every time that he steps out. But, hey, if you don't win against the big guys, you're not going to keep getting that shot. You're not going to keep getting that shot. So you got to take care of this guy. This guy is no pushover. The guy numbers 14th in the division in featherweight and has some pretty impressive wins. And, don't overlook him because he will get after you. He's hungry. And he's got reach on leg and arm.
He's 11 pounds heavier too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Brian Ortega can definitely submit this guy, but I believe that this guy is going to be scrappy enough that he gets to his feet. He might even knock Ortega out. So we'll see. I think this is going to be one of the best fights on the card, but I like Diego Lopes. Yeah.
Let's get to that main event, the title bout. Alex,
number 2.
Pereira, your champion. Old Stone hands himself.
Yes, sir.
Jiri Prochazka. Prochazka is your plus 130, plus 125.
Yeah.
Underdog. Pereira is your minus 150, 155. Favorite.
Yes, sir.
So that kind of tells you right there, you have your number one contender in the world versus the champion.
Yep.
Much like the fight with Lionheart, it kind of feels like a coin toss.
Yeah. No, it really does, Andy. And I just want to start off by saying Jiri is an absolute maniac. He's crazy.
Yeah.
If you want anybody in this fight against Alex Pereira, Jiri is a great matchup. He's as tough as they come, but I just cannot bet against Alex Pereira anytime soon. Pereira knocked out Jiri just 2 fights ago, and even though Jiri won his last fights against Rakic, I'm not sure Jiri is back to his old self after the shoulder surgery of over a year ago. But Jiri eventually got the upper hand in the finish, but his wild style leaves him open to get hit so many times, and Pereira only
absorbs him.
And Pereira only needs one opening, Andy. We've seen it time and time again, and he will put your lights out. Pereira has success with leg kicks in his first fight, and they're so powerful it knocked Jiri off balance almost every time. Yeah. Pereira is also able to maintain proper distance to stay away from Jiri's striking.
Sure.
And when Jiri did finally get inside, Pereira knocked him out. You like, okay, you want to do this?
Yep.
Come on in.
Yeah. Pereira has better defensive stats. Yeah. He also absorbs far less significant strikes per round. Per minute, you're looking at Pereira, he'll take on 3.5 per minute. Jiri's up there about 5.5, 2 more shots, and like you said, only 1 shot is what it takes from Pereira. And I think that a lot of that has to do with just where he came from.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a black belt.
He is.
In other martial arts, and he brought that over to UFC.
Yeah.
He's just tearing through the UFC right now. I mean, he's only, this is his 12th fight? He's 10-2?
Whatever it is.
It's unbelievable.
12 fight. It is absolutely unbelievable. I do believe there is a path to victory for Jiri. To squeak out a decision by using his speed, just jabbing at distance and moving around, similar to what Volkov just did to Pavlovich in fight night that we just talked about. But it's not in his DNA. It's not in his DNA. He wants to brawl, and Pereira will oblige to that. I expect leg kicks early from Pereira, landing to another KO. Pereira is the pick. Even by KO, I believe he is minus money, which should tell you something about this book. I believe he is. Let me run down here quick, Andy. Alex Pereira to win by KO, plus 120. That is absolutely insane for in a championship fight for somebody to win by KO at a plus 120. But Jiri Prochazka to win by KO only at plus 165. We're going to see somebody go night-night in this fight. Yep. Alex is the guy to do it.
All righty, Mr. Parlay Pounder. I know you got a parlay bet for UFC 303.
I do, and it's 3 fights that we talked about. Gillian Robertson against the Karate Hottie. She's a minus 185. I said this is a great parlay piece. Yep. I believe she gets the fight with ease. Minus 185 is the first leg. Garry, I believe a lot of people are looking past him against Michael Page.
Yep.
Garry is the play, minus 155 second piece. Alex Pereira is going to bring this whole thing home, minus 135 money line. You put all 3 of those together for a plus 340 parlay, putting $25 on this to win 110.
You even have a couple favorites in there.
Yeah, all 3 of them are favorites.
All 3 favorites. Come on now.
I was moving this around. I had Anthony Smith in there. I had Lionheart in there, but I playing that one a little safe. Just going to straight bet Lionheart. I like this 3 though. Robertson, Garry, Pereira. Plus 340, putting 25 on it to win 110.
You gotta like that.
You gotta love it.
Take a quick minute to recognize one of our fabulous partners, and that is the Nebraska Brewing Company. We've been enjoying, a couple of them now.
Yeah.
But, the Ale Storm.
Ale Storm, baby.
Hey, you can't get a better Pilsner
Storm
than
Chasers.
That. Official beer of Nebraska's AAA baseball team, the Storm Chasers. Don't go anywhere. This is WTL.